Hello, my name is Richard Hamilton, Natras. I was born in St. Joseph's Hospital and spent my entire life in the Stony Creek and Hamilton area up until about the last 5.5 years when we fled for our lives. We had been involved in a situation where police had been condoning child abuse and spousal abuse and disobeying court orders protecting the victims because a police officer by the name of Brent Wessels was personally involved with the stalker, child abuser. Her name at the time was Lana Darlene Kosterewa. Now, the reason I found out that Ian Matthews had committed suicide was because a reporter from the Hamilton Spectator, Steve Boost, contacted my daughter and was trying to find myself. My daughter emailed me and gave me the information, and I emailed Mr. Boost. That's when I found out Ian Matthews had in fact committed suicide. And I read the articles about his suicide and how he was a fine and upstanding officer and had gone off the rails for the last little while, and when he was being investigated that he decided to commit suicide. And I even wonder about whether it was suicide because Ian Matthews was involved in much more than that little episode. He and other officers on the force had been involved in criminal activities for many, many years. Now, I had also been threatened. I was phoned by Daryl Reed, Officer Detective Daryl Reed, and he asked me what I hoped to accomplish by doing all of this, and I said I hope to accomplish exposing the corruption in the Hamilton police force and having it corrected. And you know what he said to me? He said the people of Hamilton don't care, that they won't do anything about it. And then he told me if I continued and if I was ever in the Hamilton Police Department headquarters for some reason, that it would not go well for me. Another threat. I was also threatened by Ambrose and others. A circumstance had occurred where Officer Wessels had intercepted my daughter when she was going to the police station. She was protected by court order from her from her mother. And her mother was again breaching probation. And Officer Wessels, who was now sitting on the front desk of the Stony Creek station, turned her away. Now this went on incessantly. Breaches kept occurring. I was stalked. My now wife, Donna Mae Hennick, was stalked. We were threatened. Now, the reason all this happened was Lana Natras had attempted to kill me with a knife at my place of work. She had driven her car straight at me on the service road in Stony Creek. She had knocked me off the road when I was jogging with her car and continued to do things like this. And the police would not stop her because, I suppose, of the influence of Brent Wessels. But what happened was when I went in to complain about Officer Wessels, who, by the way, was found in my house on many occasions when I came home from work. You see, he and I were best friends in high school. I stood up for him at his wedding, and he stood up for me at mine. The problem was he was in love with my ex-wife. Now, when I got to my house and found him there in uniform, with his car, on duty, he was drunk. He was drinking my liquor, and that happened on several occasions. And finally, I told him not to come back. He was a bigot. He used to brag about the way he would pull people over of color and give them a hard time just because of that fact, because he didn't like them. Now, when I went to complain about him turning away my daughter, the officer that talked to me was Ian Matthews, and he recorded it. And I was very upset and angry. And I told him everything about Wessels, how he drank on the job, how he was, it doesn't matter. It was all on tape. And what did Ian Matthews do? He showed it to the officer. And the officer called me, Brent Wessels. He threatened me as well. So I'm very used to being threatened by police for trying to enforce the laws that are put in place by the court, the rules that are put in place by rules of civil procedure and rule of law. But this seems to be a commonplace activity in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And now that I know Mr. Matthews is no longer on the scene, although other officers will threaten me as well, I am sure you all need to know that people like Daryl Reed and Ashbaugh and others are involved in crimes with the Hamilton Police Department. And it seems that most people involved, and even the other officers on the force that seem to think they are good police officers, otherwise allow it to happen. So that makes them just as bad. Now, my ongoing problem, and the fact that the police would not enforce court orders against a violent person who continued to breach court orders. I had placed many complaints. I went to professional standards. I got virtually no response. They just didn't want to touch it. I went to the Police Services Board, and Bernie Morelli and later Tom Jackson didn't respond to me ever. I went to the Crown Attorneys about it, and they handed the investigation of it over to Ian Matthews. I went to the Ontario Civilian Commission on Policing, filed a full report, received no response. I phoned the Ontario Provincial Police at their headquarters and was told to take my files and all of my information into the OPP station in Oakville, which we did, and we explained what was going on. The next day, I received a call from the Hamilton Police Service in Stony Creek, who said they had this file that I had delivered to the OPP and wanted to know what I wanted them to do with it. Now, from there, we went through all the steps that are in place legally. All the rights we have to civil procedure and everything else were declined. And the funny thing is, no answer was ever given back. Bernie Morelli never got back to me. Tom Jackson never got back to me. We sent files to Marula, sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, and Maria Pearson. In fact, Donna Mae phoned Maria Pearson and went to her house and sat in her living room sobbing and pleading for help, and Maria promised to do something about it. She never called back. So in this election coming up in 2018, I want you, people of Hamilton and Ontario, to realize that everyone that sits on the Hamilton Council, including Mayor Eisenberger, who, by the way, was a friend of mine in some level, at least an acquaintance. We sat on the same board of directors together. He was one of the people that voted me president, and I was president there for 5 or 6 years. We never had an issue. He never had an issue with me. And yet, when I sent my information and files to him, he again did not respond. So, the Hamilton Spectator had a reporter threatened when he was looking into it. We have had lawyers threatened. I had a justice say to me that he couldn't do anything about it because he had to work in this town. Well, I'm here to tell the people of Hamilton and the police of Hamilton and the new chief of police in Hamilton, Eric, that we're back and that I do not have to tolerate this. And my wife and I want our city back. We want our country back, our province. We want our rights. because the people that work for us are in breach of their contract. Which brings me to the reason I'm putting this together right now. We took them all to court. And basically what happened was it was adjourned sine die 4 days notice. But then the threats came. That's when Ian Matthews came. And the thing of it is, it's still an open case. We can open it up tomorrow if we see fit. Only this time we are suing them for breach of contract. And we are using all of the information that we kept from day one, including copies of every letter we ever sent and all of the people involved with this, and including the fact that none of them ever responded because Hamilton police are in control. Now, when this all started, when I was attacked with a knife in Oakville, the Oakville police arrested Lana Darlene Kosterewa. And when she was released, she was given an address in Mississauga to go to stay until this could be resolved. But she walked out of jail and the courthouse, got in her car, and came back to Hamilton. Now, when I phoned the Oakville police about this, you know what they told me? They deferred it to the Hamilton Police Service. And when I phoned them, they didn't care. The next day, she was on the site where I work, going into the offices of the people that I worked beside in other businesses, interrogating them about me, sitting, watching, and waiting. And when I phoned police, they did nothing about it. Now, there were occasions when she would show up where I would go places where I would never have gone in my life with her, because I was trying to avoid her, but she would find out eventually, and she would show up there, and she would harass me and my now wife all the time. And I say my now wife because Donna Mae and I met after all of this started, and we became married. And you know what? Throughout all of this, she was the only one that cared that child abuse was being ignored by the police, in fact, encouraged. She was the only one who cared. Not one other person stood up. Not one other citizen. Not one other elected representative, relatives, my church. No one. Now, what I'm saying right now is it's time that we all got together and stop this. Now, I expect every one of you to phone the new police chief and phone Fred Eisenberger and say, we want this stopped. We want you to look into why this is happening. But beyond that, I have also discovered that there are many, many people who are having problems with Hamilton police and many kinds of situations and circumstances. And I want all of them to join a class action suit for breach of constitutional contract, breach of municipal contract, breach of employment contract. And I want the people involved with overseeing this, who just let it occur, to lose their jobs without their pensions. Now, if you could or would contact us, I have an email address set up. It is reclaimham, reclaim, the word reclaim, and then HAM @gmail.com, reclaimham. If anybody wants to talk to us, we have every bit of information that has occurred in this. And one other thing. I had occasion to go to court over another matter altogether. And in that courtroom, a Justice Simba entered the room to oversee the trial. Now, Justice Simba was named on the civil suit that we had filed. She was on the Police Services Board, and she refused to recuse herself, and she attacked me in court. Now, when I applied to receive the transcript of that incident, The court refused to give it to us. And when I applied for the transcript of the major case for $25 million that each of us had filed, my wife and I, against many police and many parts of the Ontario government and the municipal government, they refused to give us the transcripts for that either. So what do you do, and where do you go when the police threaten to kill you? If you tried to hold them accountable and responsible under the terms of their mandate, what happened to serve and protect? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Most people, the citizens of this town and province, won't get up when it's time. And you get what you deserve when you let things get like this. So I'm challenging every one of you, especially the people who are still in power, because there's an election coming up in 2018, and all of these people have been made aware of what's going on here. Do not elect any of them. In fact, Tom Jackson should be fired. He should get no pension. And anyone who stands behind him stands behind corruption. Now, I could go on, and I will. But right now, I'm going to end this session, and I want you to think about this for a little while. Thank you.